Welcome to episode 10 of the LAN Partners Podcast. My name is Connor, and with me is Dave.
Hello.
And Matt.
Hey.
All right, so this episode is coming to you a little bit earlier than usual. I will be on my anniversary trip with my wife, Lauren. We got married last summer, so this is our one-year anniversary. We're going to California for a couple days, going to have a good time. So this episode is coming out just a couple days earlier. So this week we have a new game we're going to play. It's called Guess the Game Review, which is basically we're going to read off some user reviews made by people on GameStop.com or Steam, and just read off the review, and we're going to guess which game that is based on the review. We have a PC segment this week where Dave and Matt will talk about what's under the hood of their rigs, and then they're going to review Starcraft. Our discussion topic is, why is there so much DLC? Are we buying all this DLC? Get to a couple news stories, and our list for the day is our favorite Smash Brothers characters. So a little bit about us is that we are just three guys who have full-time jobs, families, and other hobbies who love to game. What makes this podcast different is that we will, of course, talk about new games, but we will also talk about games that came out 2 or 3 years ago as if they were new. So you don't have to go looking through reviews from 3 years ago, looking for good games that are cheap now. We just want to share our experiences playing these games in case you're in the same spot as us where your gaming time is limited. If you're somebody who can relate to us, please download the podcast by Apple app, Stitcher, Google Play for you Android users, or go on iTunes and hit subscribe. That way you get our weekly episodes uploaded to you every Thursday. If you have questions, discussion topics, or list ideas, please message us on Facebook, send us an email, thelandpartners@gmail.com, or leave us a comment. Check out our new LAN Partner Twitch page where we've been uploading some game data or game footage. Like last week, I reviewed Kingdom Hearts. I have some video footage of that on the Twitch page, so please check that stuff out. So let's go ahead and start with our game. Who wants to start us off with reading a review? Dave?
I will.
Matt, all right.
There you go.
There you go.
All right. Hopefully none of us have the same one.
I don't think we will.
All right, so here's my review, and let's see if we can guess that game.
Oh, here we go.
So here it is. Okay, so they posted, had a baby, decided he was inferior, locked him in a closet, and replaced the door with a wall. Child Services is still looking for him as we speak.
Wow, it's morbid. I think I got it. Can I throw it out there?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with The Sims.
Yeah, that's correct.
I
That's correct.
had no clue. I was gonna say Legend of Zelda, maybe because they neglected the child because he was playing the game so much or something.
Oh no, he means in-game.
Yeah,
I used to do that with
this isn't a real baby. Disclaimer.
I used to do that with swimming pools. I used to throw my characters in a swimming pool, then pull the ladder out.
Yeah,
and then they would
So
drown in there. Or if you trap them in a room and then they urinate themselves. Yeah, I got you.
Wow, good job, Dave. All right, so I'll go next. I'm gonna read a tidbit from 2 different reviews. These are both from GameStop.com. This one is titled "Fun and Terrible at the Same Time." This is one of, if not the worst shooter I've ever played. Sure, there might be some fun aspects, and yeah, I've seen them, but by Jove, what the HE double hockey sticks happened. This is a step backwards. And then I won't say any more from that review. Then let me go to the next review. The errors are still frustratingly overwhelming, and matchmaking might be one of the worst I've ever encountered. If these things don't get you, the ridiculous headshots will, assuming you get into a match. On many occasions, I had gotten shot in the lower half of my body, and somehow the game awards my opponent with a headshot. No idea. Honestly, save yourself the money and the frustration and hold out for something better. I don't get how this game has so many positive reviews. It really is terrible, and no matter how hard I try, I can't like this game. You guys have any clue which game that might be?
My first guess is Battlefield.
No, not Battlefield.
Okay.
One of the 100,000 generic first-person shooters that.
Is it Counter-Strike?
No, here, let me read you a little bit more then.
Okay.
In the other games, you had a campaign, fully customized.
It's Rainbow Six.
Yep.
Rainbow Six.
I wanted to avoid that one, but.
Yeah, that gave it away. Coming out without a campaign. That's R6.
Yeah.
And then at the very end of that one, it says, "In all honesty, get Battlefield."
Oh no.
Okay.
It's completely out of the genre. All right.
Wow.
All right, Dave.
Cool.
You got one for us?
All right. All right, here we go. This is a 3-parter. Ready? Review number 1. These all come from Steam. Stephen Hawking runs better than this game. That's the entire review. One of them. This is my favorite one. I have traveled back from the year 3279. I have much to report. Humans now have gills and can fly. There have been 3 catastrophic wars, and this game has finally entered beta.
Is it DayZ?
It is DayZ.
I was gonna guess Ark.
Ark's coming out full release, I think August 8th.
Jeez. We were just having a discussion about how DayZ seemed like it's just been in like alpha forever.
Yeah, that was my favorite one. I traveled back in time from year 30, whatever. That was a good one.
That was pretty good. All right, yeah. So that was what?
Wait, I got one more for you. This is a bonus.
All right, bonus.
So this game, here's a review for it. Most realistic beard in video game history. Almost cried when the Emperor forced me to shave it.
The Emperor forced me to shave it.
Most realistic beard.
Feels like a good fantasy book, but in the form of a video game. Massive.
Is it The Witcher?
It is The Witcher.
Nice.
All right, done.
Nice. All right, so yeah, that was our reader review game. We'll be doing that every couple weeks, so stay tuned for more of that. So let's get down to our PC rig talk. What they're going to do is just talk about what's underneath their hood, talk about their V6 cylinders and the restrictor plates and the Johnson rods and all that stuff. So one of you two, take us away with your PC.
I'll let the best go last, so I'll go first. So my PC, I got a pretty good deal from iBuyPower a couple years ago. I did not build this one by hand. It's got an Intel i3 4350 processor that's got 4 megabytes of level 3 cache. It runs at 3.6 gigahertz. It's got 8 gigs of RAM, which comes in the form of 2 4 gigabyte DDR3 cards. The GPU is a Radeon R9 270X that has 2 gigabytes of memory on it. The motherboard's a gigabyte. The hard drive is a terabyte. That runs at 7,200 RPM. But then I also have, in addition to that one that I added in, a 250 solid state drive that I have the games I play most on. My headset is a SteelSeries Siberia V2, and I'm rocking the full Razer accessory kit here. I got the Black Widow Ultimate keyboard and the Death Adder Chroma mouse.
All right.
Nice. Okay, so my rig, I have what they call a micro ATX motherboard. So it's a smaller motherboard. When I bought the PC as a whole PC. I didn't build it myself, but what I did was I just swapped a lot of parts out of it once I bought it, because I realized that was actually the cheaper route to go instead of just buying a fully fledged upgraded PC. So I have a micro ATX motherboard, gigabyte motherboard. I have an AMD FX 8350, which is my processor. That's the CPU. It's a dated CPU. It's about 6 years old now, but it still is usually the recommended AMD processor by games when you're looking at what you need to run a game. So it still holds up, and that runs at about 4 gigahertz, and then I think it turbo boosts up to 4.5 gigahertz, and it's an 8 core CPU. So actually not ideal for gaming in terms of Intel. Intel will always beat out AMD, but it's good for multitasking and videos and things like that. My GPU is a GTX 1070, which has 8 gigs of video RAM, which is a whole lot, and it's a newer card. It's a newer card. It came out, I think, last year, and it's kind of what they're calling the sweet spot for 1080p gaming. Like, it's pointless to get any better video card than that if you're going to do 1080p gaming, because it's kind of overkill at that point. I have 2 1 terabyte hard drives, one's at 7200, and then the other one is at 5400 because that came stock with the computer, and I just didn't want to get rid of it. But I also do have a 512 gigabyte Samsung 850 Evo solid state drive. So I know me and Dave kind of had a little moment when we both realized how much faster our PC started up with.
Such a big difference. Holy cow.
Yeah, so that was amazing. Right now, I use a Corsair headset. So, and it's completely like customizable. It has all these lights and bells and whistles on the sides and all this stuff that I don't even really see, but it lets me customize it. And I have a Logitech mouse that I use. I don't know the exact model, but feels very good in my hands, so I like using that a lot. I have 16 gigabytes of RAM, DDR4 RAM. Kingston HyperX is the brand. And I think those are running at 1800 megahertz right now. And my keyboard is actually a Corsair KGB R95, I think. And that is insane. I can customize every single key. And it's a mechanical keyboard. I can customize every single key on it and change whatever color I want, make it do different things. So maybe a little bit overkill, but I love it. It's great for gaming. So that's my rig.
I have a 2011 MacBook Pro that comes with fully stock keyboard and a trackpad.
Apple GarageBand.
Trackpad, Microsoft Word installed.
3 missing keys.
Yeah.
And I drive a 2015 Red Cross Trek. All right, so now they will give us a review on Starcraft on their rigged out PCs.
Dave, you want to start us off?
Sure. So Starcraft is a real-time strategy game. Starcraft 2 is what we're reviewing here, and it is the sequel to the smash hit Starcraft that now is getting a re-release, a remastered version that is friendly and plays nice with the free version that Blizzard also put out because they're a fantastic company. And basically, it's a real-time strategy game that has 3 different races. They're one of the kind of pioneers of the 3 different races in a game. All the races are awesome and play differently. There's the Terran, the Zerg, and the Protoss. The Terran are humans, and they're very mech-heavy. The Protoss are human-like aliens, and they're very armor-heavy. And then the Zerg are bug creatures, and their thing isn't being heavy in armor or mech, but to make a lot of units really quickly and swarm the enemy. It's on the 3rd expansion called Legacy of the Void. In Legacy of the Void, it mixes some stuff up. There's more starting workers than there used to be in the game, and that's where you collect resources so that you can actually build your army up. Real-time strategy, if you're not familiar with it, is you have your little base, you expand your base and build units. Some units are combat units, some units collect resources, and you're essentially waging war against all other people on the map. The new update also has area effect units that will damage many units at once if they're standing nearby one another, which is something that StarCraft 2 desperately needed to deal with things like Zerg swarms of Banelings and Terran, Marine rushes. The expansion also eliminates the early game, which was present in the last 2 versions of StarCraft 2, because you get resources so much faster with the more starting workers that collect resources. So all the timings have changed, timings are a typical amount of minutes and seconds it takes to reach certain levels of tech to get certain types of units. And professional players know these minutes and seconds like the back of their hand, and then they had to kind of rethink their entire strategies, and the meta completely changed with this new patch because there is no early game anymore. It pretty much jumps right to like mid game because of all the workers that you start out with. So Matt, I know you played a lot of the campaign of StarCraft 2. I play only multiplayer, exclusively multiplayer. In fact, I have 0% of campaign finished on all of the 3 versions, even though I have them all. So what's your take on the campaign?
I completed the Terran campaign, and I also completed the Zerg campaign. Legacy of the Void, I actually just picked up, a week or 2 ago, because me and Dave got a little bit back into it to help us out with this review a little bit, refresh our memory. So I picked that up. I haven't gotten through that yet, but the campaign is good. I think it has, it's nothing special, but it has kind of what you would expect in terms of, there is a story there, and, you play as Raynor in the Terran campaign, and you're the controller of all the troops, and you tell them what to do, and it's more objective based, obviously, and multiplayer, you're free to do the strategy that you want to perform. In this, it's kind of more, they have you set up for different types of situations. So I really wouldn't say, and I guess this is sort of a con if we're getting into that already, but sort of a con would be it doesn't really set you up for multiplayer at all, I would say. It doesn't really prepare you for it, which is what I was hoping for, because
No, it does not.
right, and I did not have very much experience with StarCraft in the multiplayer realm, so I was hoping I would learn something from the campaign and to bring into multiplayer, which, I mean, you get to learn the controls and how to build your units and everything, but it just doesn't transfer over to multiplayer at all. So that was kind of a con for me, but the campaign's cool. There's a lot of cinematic moments, like in between your battles or your objectives. Once you complete that map or level, the story kind of continues, and they show from other points of view. And, you know, you're a Rainer, and you're trying to basically keep hold of Kerrigan, who has been taken over by the Swarm, and she's kind of on her way to becoming the queen of the Swarm, and you're trying to stop her from turning, basically, which, not a spoiler, she turns and she becomes the queen of the Swarm.
Yeah,
so
she's kind of on the cover of a game as the queen of the Swarm, so
Right,
sorry about
right.
that. Minor spoiler, but not.
Right. So that's a cool dynamic, though, because they still have that relationship. So even when she's commanding the Swarm, she still has like a soft spot for Raynor. So it's kind of interesting to see that. But it's enjoyable. The game really spikes up the difficulty towards the end of the campaign, which I have no shame to admit. The very last level of, I believe it was the Swarm campaign, or no, I think it was the Terran campaign. I used the God mode cheat because it just got so ridiculous that I felt like it was impossible. There were so many units coming at me. I was not prepared, and I just had to get through it. So, but yeah, overall, it's a fun game. The game runs incredibly well. I know me and Dave got into this new co-op mode when we played last that we enjoyed a lot. It was objective based. We had to defend, and there's different objectives. We just did one, but we had to defend this kind of building in the middle of the map. Yeah, like a temple, and then because they were gonna do a satellite strike or something, so we had to defend it, and we had to fight off kind of waves of enemies and work together. So that was pretty cool, and I know we enjoyed that. But I don't know, Dave, if there's any cons or pros that you want to discuss.
Well, before I get into my cons and pros, I also want to point out that there is also a couple different things that are different from the original StarCraft that I forgot to mention before, such as you can share resources with other players. So in the old StarCraft, if one of your teammates got attacked really early and you're playing a team game and they lost their entire base, it's kind of a 2-on-1 at that point. Whereas in StarCraft 2, you just throw a bunch of extra resources at them, or you could split your own resources amongst both of you, and you're not necessarily completely out of the game yet. Whereas before, unless you're playing with, one of the greatest StarCraft players of all time, it's pretty hard to come back from a 2v1.
Yeah.
And then there also is another mode called Archon mode, where instead of teaming up with your own unique races, you actually combine and you jointly control one team. So one person can focus on resource collection and expanding their base to find more resources, while the other person takes the army units and goes around the map and tries to hold positions and things like that. I thought that was a cool mode, and the reason it's called Archon mode is because there's actually a Protoss unit called an Archon, and to create it, you need to Templars to fuse together. So it's kind of a witty little way to say that you're kind of fused together to work as one single race. And then last but not least, there's a lot of customization. StarCraft is known for spawning games such as Dota 2 and whatnot. It goes way, way back to the original StarCraft before Brood War. And it's a very customizable game still, number 2 is. All right, so my good, and I don't really have a whole lot of bad here. My good is that all of the races, Zerg, Terran, Protoss, completely unique. They cater to different play styles, and so if you're not good with one race, you might be awesome with another. So I really, really like that. It's also the most balanced real-time strategy I've ever played, and I've played quite a few in my time, and StarCraft is definitely the most well-balanced. The gameplay is very organic, so I never feel like I've seen the same thing twice. So that's a lot of stuff I appreciate about it. What were some of your cons, Matt?
I think one of the cons, and this just comes along with probably any real-time strategy game, is there's definitely a learning curve. So if you're someone that gets frustrated easily, or gets overwhelmed easily by, units just off. Because what happened with me when I first started playing is I would set up my base, be gathering resources, and before I know it, there's already a horde of enemies attacking me, and I have no soldiers set up at all to defend myself. And there is kind of a sense of defeat in that, at first you're like, how do I do this? This is impossible. But once you start to, like Dave was saying earlier, getting that timing together of what you need to upgrade and when and how quickly, then it starts to make a little bit more sense and become more manageable. So I think if people can get past that learning curve, they'll definitely be rewarded for that. And I think it's a good sense of accomplishment to yourself to say, okay, I'm finally getting the hang of this. So I think that's what's going to keep you coming back for more, because I know when me and Dave played, we played a few matches, and then after that, I improved every single match. So I wanted to just keep figuring out, okay, what can I do to keep improving how fast I'm getting these units out, how I'm spending my resources and when. And it's a very kind of addicting feeling once you get into that. I don't, like you said, Dave, there's not many cons. I think it's, like he said, it's super well balanced. When you do play with each race, though, it's a learning curve for each race. So if you learn one race, that's not going to help you with the other race. You're going to have to kind of start fresh again. So
the Zerg play completely different than the other two. It's a whole new beast. You'll have to just play to figure it out. But it's wow. Like you're like, have I played this game ever before? Like, what am I doing?
It's completely different.
Flying weird orb thing is how I build more guys. Like, what is going on? So
yeah.
What's your rating of this one?
I gave it an 8 out of 10. So I thought it was a great game. I didn't put as many hours into it as I know you have, but
has anybody?
It's definitely a great game.
Has anybody? Not on this side of the world. Maybe Scarlet, the pro Zerg player. I don't know. I give this thing a 10 out of 10. It's my favorite real-time strategy game. It is the real-time strategy game. Blizzard they're the masters of disaster. Warcraft 3 is fantastic. Real-time strategy game. It's actually my second favorite real-time strategy game. Then everything else takes a distant third. So I would say this is the pinnacle of everything that is real-time strategy, and the pro scene definitely can show that.
All right, sounds good. So that was Starcraft from our PC dudes over there. I am not a PC gamer. I've never gotten into it, so they will be taking all things PC. Maybe I'll chime in on a few things here and there, but not looking likely. So let's get down to our discussion topic for today, which was DLC. There's always all this DLC coming out all the time, whether it be right when a game comes out or a week later, a month later. Just always seems to be a constant flow of DLC, and it just makes us think, why is there so much DLC? Why are we not getting these extra content with the game or for free? Sometimes they charge us, sometimes we get it for free. So, Matt, what do you think about DLC?
I think DLC for most companies, I'm not going to say all, because I can think of a few companies that handle DLC very well and in the right way. But I think a lot of it is a cash grab. I think they know that history is showing people are going to pay for this extra content because either people enjoy the game, which is fine, and they want to continue by adding stuff to their game or getting more content, or people are kind of OCD and they need to have like everything for that game. They can't get away with like, oh God, I need that last mission that they just put out or whatever, So I think it's an easy cash grab. The thing that bothers me about it though is that it has to be already in their outcomes when they're thinking about making these games. They're already planning DLC, and I think it's something that probably can always be released with the game, but they know people will pay for it separately. So they release it a few months later and they make the money off of it. And we as consumers, because I hear a lot of people always complain about, oh my God, how can they charge me $10 for some weapon skins or to change my guy's outfit or something like that? I mean, we're voting with our dollars. So if you don't like that, then don't pay for it. And that's kind of your vote, your stance on it. But I get the other side of it too, though, where you get games like The Witcher 3. So I know I've talked about The Witcher 3 before as being this amazing game, and CD Projekt Red, who's the developer, they have an amazing stance on DLC where everything they released when the game came out, any extra content they released besides their expansions was totally free, because they said as a developer, this was meant to like be in the game already, so we're giving it to you for free. Thank you for waiting for this content. But then they made you pay for the expansions, which is fine because the the game's already 100 plus hours in the main story, or just in the main game, but then the expansions are adding 10 hours, and then the second one after that added a whole 30 hours. I mean, that's more than a full $60 release game, and they're only charging $20-$30 for that. So that's something you pay for because you're like, oh my God, they just gave me all this stuff for free. I respect them as a company. I'm going to pay them back for this. I'm going to contribute to them. So I think a lot of companies out there are just really trying to get money out of it, and that's what bothers me the most about it. And I usually don't pay for DLC unless it's a game that I'm really, really into.
Yeah, I have, just real quick, Dave, I want to get to you in just 1 second, but Matt was bringing up this point of it's a cash grab. They want the money, which it would seem that way. But yeah. I have a couple theories that would maybe give some reason why they're looking for this cash grab. And one theory is that when a game's released, when they're done making this game, usually developers will lay off a bunch of their employees because after the game's done, what purpose do they have after that? But sure. The reason for all this DLC is, well, we have this team, we can employ them, let's have them create some DLC. That way, now all these people are employed, we're coming out with new content for these games, and now we're making more money. That's just one theory. So, Dave, I have another one, but let's hear from Dave. Dave, where do you stand on this DLC topic?
I like that Matt pointed out that there's such thing as the good witch and the bad witch of DLC. The good witch of DLC gives you completely new and unique content, like Matt said with The Witcher 3, where you're getting essentially a whole new game that just is already tacked onto a game you love. And who doesn't want their favorite game to end? Everyone, right? So if you get that DLC that extends your game, I just got the Legend of Zelda DLC, and now I have more Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild to play. When I sank 100 hours in, I felt sad that I had nothing new to accomplish. I have all 120 shrines. I upgraded all my armor sets that I wanted to upgrade, and this gave me another reason to go back and play it. Another good way to have DLC, in my opinion, is that cosmetic. This is where I differ from Matt a little bit, because I think he said about the costumes and how he didn't appreciate that. In competitive games, that is the only DLC I want to see. I only want to see stuff that's like gun skins, different map, like day-night cycle things, stuff like that. That doesn't actually change the gameplay itself, because the bad witch of DLC does things like segment gaming communities. The best example of this in my mind right away is Call of Duty is notorious for this, where they release map packs that you have to purchase, and now you segmented your community. Some people can play on those maps and some people cannot. So you took your game that had a very solid foundation, one giant player base, and you broke it into two smaller parts, and maybe some people are going to lose interest because of that. My absolute least favorite type of DLC is a type that gives one person an advantage over the other. So most of my gripes obviously come from multiplayer DLC. And when I think of examples of one player getting advantages over the other, I think of the game that I just traded into GameStop, Halo Wars 2, which is the saddest, most pathetic excuse of a real-time strategy game I've ever played my entire life. It's one of the games I regret buying because the developer is putting out DLC that gives you new heroes, essentially new races in super units within that real-time strategy game. So it kind of ties into our Starcraft conversation, and they make you pay for them. And these guys that you pay for give you the advantage over the stock ones. And I know some people disagree, but hey, I've been watching the quote-unquote professional scene of this game on and off, and let me tell you, the chick that has the Scorch tanks is definitely overpowered compared to a lot of the stock characters that come with the game that are now essentially useless. So I think that you can do DLC really well. Mostly in single player games is where I'll support it the most. In multiplayer games, I want that free DLC, and I want DLC that changes cosmetic and aesthetic things. I don't want it affecting the gameplay.
Yeah, and here's where I stand on DLC, and kind of on the same side as both of you, where multiplayer DLC should be free at all times. Map packs, weapon packs, whatever. That should be free.
I agree.
A couple years ago, Halo 4, I think it was, they launched a new map pack. I don't like paying for map packs, so I was left only playing the basic maps while everyone else wanted to play all the new maps, and I just had to bite the bullet and say, okay, fine, I'll buy the new maps. And that really bummed me out because I don't like having to buy new maps. But on the other side of that, like Dark Souls 3, Matt and I just picked up the DLC to Dark Souls 3, and I'm completely willing to shell out $15 for Dark Souls DLC because it's a whole new level. It's a whole new adventure. Matt, remember when we were playing it just the other night? We're like, this feels crazy to be playing a new adventure in Dark Souls. It feels good. It feels like we're playing a new game. And that new Uncharted, The Lost Legacy, that's the name, right? Lost Legacy?
Yeah.
I thought it was something else maybe. But that's coming out in the fall. And that's going to be a DLC to Uncharted 4. And you betcha that's going to be 10 hours. We're going to be paying for that. And just one more theory before we move on to this whole why is DLC such a thing. I want to get your guys' opinions on this. Is that game development, it costs so much more now. There was a quote from the Sony president that, let me find it real fast. It's Sony's head of worldwide development, Shoya Yoshida. He said budgets for top-tier PS4 games would be slightly larger than the $20 to $50 million price range he estimated as the development cost for top PS3 games. So they're saying that these games cost so much more than PS3 days. So when they sell a game for $60, they're not making the same amount of profit margins that they were making on a PS3. So what do you guys think about that?
I mean, it makes sense. That's a hit, where because I think there's always the argument of people, like as consumers, we're always saying, no way I'm gonna pay more than $60 for a game, because we have this stubborn stance of that's the way it's always been. But as a developer, putting myself in their shoes, it's like they're not getting paid for their work, and we always hear about these horrible conditions that a lot of these teams have to work in, where they're working super long hours and they don't get to go home, and they're missing paychecks sometimes because they're trying to make deadlines, and it's just crazy stuff that they go through just to put a game out there, and they don't even know how well it's going to do. And then, like Connor was saying earlier, half the time people are getting laid off because they finished that game and now it's on to the next, or they don't have an idea for a next one yet, and it's just people are left in the dust. So I can understand if you're spending $50-60 million on a game for your budget and the game still costs the same amount it always has, your profit margin is going to be a lot lower.
Yeah, Dave, do you have anything else you want to add about the DLC?
Well, I'm kind of going along with the question that you just asked, Matt. I'm really hopeful that gaming is going to keep picking up steam. I love turning on TBS and seeing that they are televising gaming tournaments for professional gamers, because whether you agree with it or not, and I've lost respect for a lot of sports analysts that don't agree to this point, but these guys who play team-based or even individual esports, they are putting in the time that athletes put into their respective sports. And just because you've got these horrible stereotypes created by the same type of people that are newscasters on some of these big commercial sports stations about, the gamer being this pimply faced, fat guy that lives in his parents' basement, that's not what these guys look like. If you're watching esports, these guys have to stick to a very strict regimen. They exercise and they keep very active because they do have to be sitting for such a long time. It's no different than sitting at a desk job and being sedentary. You wouldn't make fun of somebody or say someone's not a warrior at their career just because it's a desk job. I know plenty of people who get a lot of respect for sitting at a desk. Why isn't that being opened up to gamers? Why is working as a team, a cohesive unit, not being looked at equally? And I think now, to get to my point actually here, now that I beat around the bush a little bit, it's becoming more acceptable, and people are opening up their eyes to the possibility that, hey, esports might be somehow contending with actual sports pretty soon. I know that on TBS, when they show the sports montage, esports is mixed in with the sports. So I like the direction that's heading, and it's great for developers because if more people are purchasing games and getting into video games and paying tickets, big ticket prices for events for games that get supported for that, you're going to see developers getting paid off more. You're going to see them happier to do their job, kind of like people who make movies and actors and actresses. So many people go and pay to see their movie. They don't really have to worry about a paycheck. They still, like you said, Matt, have to worry about whether it's going to tank or it's going to be successful in the movie business, but it's a risk you take. The gaming industry is going to mirror not only the sports industry, but also the movie industry at some point. And I think that I am completely just astounded that in my lifetime I got to see that happen.
Yes. So, DLC has been a pretty rapidly changing thing. Before we move on to our news, I have one little stat I want to share about the DLC. There was a survey taken last September in 2016 from 9,000 people. They asked, have you bought some DLC in the last 3 months? 28% of people have purchased additional game content in the past 3 months. So 28% of people are buying DLC within that 3-month period. That doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it's something to think about. So moving on to some news. Dave, I have a special news story for you I want to get your opinion on.
Ooh.
It has been announced a couple days ago that the Naruto Shippuden Storm Ultimate Ninja
Legacy.
Storm Trilogy and Legacy release next month. It is, was it, Dave, 3 games in one pack?
4 games in one pack. They say the trilogy for the first time on next gen, but the actual game, the Legacy Edition, comes with all 4. It comes with the 3 from the PlayStation 3 Xbox era, and then it also comes with Naruto to Boruto, which is the very newest of the Storm 4 DLC. So it comes with 4 games, and what I think you were going to mention next is there's also a brand new Naruto IP coming out that is going to be in 8-player brawl format where 4 ninjas fight another 4 ninjas simultaneously, which is new to the series. So, yes, the answer to your question, whatever it is yes, I am super, super excited about this. But since nobody plays these games with me, I will most likely wait till it goes on sale to pick it up to play by myself.
That was my part 2 question was, are you buying this?
I'm reading your mind.
All right. That was my, I thought I would have tripped you up on that one, but you were well aware of it. So let's close out our milestone episode of episode 10 of the LAN Partners Podcast with our list of the best or our favorite Smash Brothers characters from any Smash Brothers game, ones that we've liked. So let's go ahead and start off with Dave. Dave, who's your number 3 Smash Brother character?
Disclaimer. My number 3 character is Solid Snake, not because he's great in Smash Brothers, but because how do you not have Solid Snake on your Smash Brothers list? He was in a Smash Brothers game. Solid Snake's my number 3.
All right, Matt.
My number 3 is Ike. Yep, he's from the Fire Emblem series. So I don't play a whole lot of Smash Brothers, but when I do, I have these 3 characters that I go to.
Yeah, I have about 3 characters also that are my go-to. Samus is my number 3. I like the gun shooting and everything like that. He's very mobile, agile, jumping around, shooting guns. He's cool. Dave, what is your number 2 Smash Brother character?
Number 2 is Link. Enough said.
Matt?
My number two is Link as well.
Yeah, trifecta. Come on, Connor, bring it home.
My number 2 is Link if he was Star Fox, because my number 2 is Star Fox.
Link if you were Star Fox.
Connor loves those guns, man.
Yeah, I'm all about the guns, man. So yeah, my number 2 is Star Fox. Dave, what is your number 1 Smash Brother character?
Well, I've had these guys over to play Smash Brothers at my casa several times, so they know that no matter what version of Smash I'm playing post N64, Roy was the name of the character from Fire Emblem that did the same thing as Ike, who's in the newest game. So Ike/Roy, whatever version I'm playing, that's my guy. And if I do have to say so, I'm not so bad with him. So
you love Ike. You ran all over us with Ike that day. Matt, what's your number 1?
I'll continue that conversation because my number 1 is probably not a popular character, but Bowser is my number 1. I remember giving Dave a pretty decent run for his money in that tournament.
The butt stomp. I remember that.
We got very close. We were in a sudden death in the championship round.
Yeah.
And I had a poorly timed butt stomp, and Ike got me.
No, I think he did Ike does that like sword up in the air and you land right on top of it and bad things happen.
Yeah.
Well, no, I got that charge. He just Matt's right. I remember it very vividly. He went for the butt stomp that I was fearing, and I rolled out of the way, and I did the charged where you swipe the right stick to the left, and he does a charge smash, and that was it.
There were some sweaty hands that day.
Good times.
Indeed.
Good times. My number 1 character is Marth. So we're all going around that Fire Emblem's family of Marth and Ike. Marth was a little bit quicker for me for the night because I the last Smash Brothers I owned was Nintendo 64. I didn't own Smash Brother Wii or Wii U, so he was a good character for me just because I was able to avoid a lot of danger and not necessarily have a lot of skill. So that was our favorite Smash Brothers characters. So that was episode 10, our milestone episode. Episode 10 coming at you a little bit earlier than usual, but hopefully you'll get a chance to listen and enjoy it. Please get on our Facebook page and tell us your favorite Smash Brothers characters. We'd love to hear from the listeners. Tell us what you think. Please subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, whatever you got to do to get our episodes. Thank you so much for listening. See you next week.